After searching forever for just the right place, she now owned a piece of the everyday charm that was Chandlerville, Georgia, the historic town northeast of Atlanta that she'd moved to before the start of the school year. Mimosa Lane was a twisty-turny, horseshoe-shaped road. Over the years, a sprawling community of more than 50 homes had sprouted along its wooded splendor. At its center dangled a cul-de-sac where one side of the lane curled in sharply, around, and then returned to its twin. The cul-de-sac's secluded curves and the houses at its heart seemed to exist on a totally separate road. And within that bubble of isolated perfection, Mallory had found her dream house. Surrounding her property were sedately aging homes and large lots bursting with trees and manicured landscaping. Only cul-de-sac residents or their visitors came this far down the lane. It was easier to reach the other houses from Scenic Highway, the main street running through Chandlerville that both ends of the lane eventually rambled into. A paradise for young families, Mimosa Lane was the idealistic solid ground Mallory had craved as a little girl, when her idea of heaven had been a yard she could call her own, a happy family and friends to play with, and doors and windows she'd never have to lock. She'd just spent Thanksgiving weekend feeling soul-deep gratitude for this chance, especially to her grandmother, who even after her death had been adamant that one day Mallory would have her fantasy come true. So why couldn't she banish the past for good and embrace this world she'd wanted so desperately? A rustle reached her from the direction of the living room. Her eyes flew open. That wasn't a restless memory set free by her mind's nocturnal wandering. The next odd sound sent her scrambling from bed, her ears ringing. She couldn't feel her legs except for their shaking. After 2 tries, she crammed her feet into fluffy slippers and wrapped herself in terry cloth. She pressed her back to the wall beside her open bedroom door, willed her panic into submission, and ticked off her options. If someone had broken in, her choices were to confront them in her ancient Tinkerbell robe, or to hide and wait for whomever it was to either leave or find her. Instinct, unwise and unstoppable, propelled her into the hallway. The hell with hiding. She'd be damned if she'd let anything make her afraid in her own home. The rattle came again, almost too faint to hear, drawing her the short distance to her living room where more windows waited, and more shadows. Plus the floor-to-ceiling artificial Christmas tree she'd assembled weeks ago, lit and loaded with sparkling ornaments and lights, to the amusement, no doubt, of every conservative neighbor up and down the lane. The tree's flickering illumination revealed nothing to her except the room's sparse furnishings. Her heart eased down her throat as she told herself to remain calm. But there was someone there. A childhood of self-preservation had armed her with a second sense she'd never shaken, and her intuition was screaming that she was no longer alone. She heard a sniffle and stepped closer to the tree. A shadow in the corner moved, and only then did Mallory see her. A tiny, forlorn ghost lurked amid the sheer panels that would have been curtains in another house, only Mallory kept them tied back. She sighed at the child who kept wandering over to stare through Mallory's windows. The 7-year-old had ventured inside this time and was hiding behind Mallory's tree. "Polly?" She checked the mantel clock. "It's after midnight, sweetie. What are you doing here?" What did it say about Mallory that this child was the first person who'd stepped inside her home since she'd moved here? No matter how badly she wanted to take part in the community thriving around her, 3 months of trying had proven an experiment gone sometimes comically awry. And while she attempted to figure things out, she'd managed to keep the locals at a comfortable distance. All of them, except this wandering child. Most afternoons